What's going on? This is Ryan with Automatic Comics, and up next, we're going to be talking about a price change announcement that we just got from CGC. This one's pretty interesting because it seems like there's a little bit of a mixed reaction to it. I've got some people that have messaged me about this increase in prices, and some people that have messaged me about this decrease in prices. And in reality, they are both correct. So it's going to be an interesting one to talk about. Also, got my tinfoil hat out. A few things related to this that I wanted to talk about that I think they need the tinfoil hat for this discussion. So let's get into this. All right. So before we get started, please remember to hit that like button and hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content like this. So I got tagged in a post on Instagram from Pressable Defects. They are the first ones that I saw that shared that this price change had happened with CGC. And soon after that, there were some conversations and some chats I'm in, some messages I got that were basically saying, why is CGC increasing their prices and why is CGC decreasing their prices? So it's a little bit confusing, I think, for some people on which one it is. And like I said in the intro, it's actually both of them are correct. And I do have the tinfoil hat out. There are going to be some conspiracies that we need to discuss with this as well. There's also an interesting one with the pricing change for one of the tiers that I missed the last time they changed prices that I wanted to talk about here. And again, tinfoil hat's really needed for that one, but I think it is an important topic to discuss. So first thing here. This is the announcement. This is the news release that came from CGC, and it says calling all collectors submit to CGC with only a free membership, save more with paid memberships. So if you're not familiar with CGC and how you do the submissions, there are a few different tiers of memberships. You have a free one where you used to only be able to submit that through like a con. Like if CGC was set up at a con, you could go to their table, you could submit the books there. That was the free tier. And obviously it's free. It didn't cost you anything. Then there were what was called the associate membership, premium membership, elite membership, and then there's a dealer membership. All of them have different benefits. But the big changes that are going with this are that free members can now submit using the web page. You can do a mail-in submission. So that's a big change. The associate and premium memberships are now going to get a 10% discount on their submission. It was previously no discount. It was just the submission that you could do. It didn't give you any discount. However, about 3 years ago, CGC got rid of the discount that premium members had. It used to be 10%, and they're just giving it back. So they're giving that discount back to the premium members, and they're adding it to the associate members. Then you have the elite members that had a 10% discount, and now they're getting a 20% discount. Again, that used to be 15, then they dropped it to 10, and now they're raising it to 20. Then last one is you have the dealers, which they don't mention here. It's not real easy to get information on the dealers, but the dealer discount was 15%. Used to be 20. They dropped it to 15, and now they're actually increasing it to 25. So the dealer discounts for submissions are pretty substantial now. But if we scroll down, basically it shows you what the current prices are, and there are some changes. They did increase. They did have one increase and actually one big decrease. And then what the fee you would actually pay with the discounted memberships. Again, they don't have the dealer one on here, but I've got some tables I put together that'll make a little bit easier to see all of this, and we'll discuss that. And again, like I said, there's one that I really want to talk about because I think it's a very interesting conversation on what could be, some speculation on what could potentially be impacting grades that are coming out. But before we get into that, just for your awareness, if you want to see those fees outside of an article, sometimes you can lose articles over time. If you go to the CGC page and you go to submit at the top, go down to services and fees, this is the page where you can see what all those costs are. And they've got all the different tiers, what the different costs are, all that kind of stuff. Now, one thing I did want to point out, there's no change in price for the reholdering. That's staying at $20 for the up to $1,000 books and $50 for unlimited value books. And however, the reject fee for pre-screens. Now, I don't do pre-screens, so I'm not certain, but I'm pretty sure that was $8. And now it's $9. I could be wrong. Maybe that got increased before, but I thought that used to be $8 and now it's $9. So there is an increase there. Just another, like a small rant. I don't know why they still have this imaging fee here. They image all the books for free now. That was a change they made with some speculation that it was because maybe they knew something was going on with some of these books with this scamming stuff, and so they started doing these images. They started that in May of 2023, where they're imaging everything. I think the announcement came out in like June, but I saw it on submissions starting in May, and never pay this fee because it's for free. I don't know why it's on here. They should remove it. Never select that option. But now let's go and check out the pricing changes. And so we can actually see how the prices have changed over time and if you are actually getting a better price. So here's some, just a table that I threw together for this. And so this is the no discount pricing. So this is what you pay if you have the free membership or if you used to have the associate or premium memberships. These are the prices you used to pay. And so it's $24 for modern, went up to $25 in 2023. No change here. So still the same price. So any additional discount is actually going to be a benefit. Vintage went from 35 to 37, and now it's up to 40. So that is actually a pretty substantial increase, almost 10%. I think it's like 8%. And this used to be called economy. It changed to vintage in 2023. That's why I've got both of those there, just for whatever you might be familiar with. And then we've got the high value, which used to be called standard, was again changed in 2023. Went from 80 to 85 and stayed the same. No price increase there. We have the express, and this is actually a pretty good change that they've made, and that I'll talk about with the unlimited. So we have the express that was 130. This was anything up to $3,000. So it was the value of the book between 1,000 and 3,000. And this went away in 2023. And I know, like, for me, that was kind of upsetting because I would submit books in the express tier pretty regularly. And so it made me think, like, now I got to submit these in unlimited. Like, if I've got like a $1,500 book, I got to pay $150 to get it graded. And so what happens, and I'm sure a lot of people did this too, is you just start submitting in the lower tiers. And so I did have a question on that recently. And, if you can submit in any tier you want, CGC will upcharge you if they think that your book is worth more than what's in that tier. But hey, aim for the lower tier. If they upcharge you, they upcharge you. If they don't, you got the book graded for a little bit cheaper. That's kind of my general philosophy. There are some books that they're going to catch, so you might as well put it into the higher tiers anyway. It's like a Hulk 181 or an X-Men 1 or Fantastic Four 1, that kind of stuff. But otherwise, aim low and let them upcharge you, and then then you never overpay. Then my other thought on that is that what if I missed something like a cutout or restoration, and now that book really isn't worth what I put it as, and I just overpaid like by a ton to get the book graded. Now that's just my little justification to myself on why I can put it into the lower tiers, but I don't know, it seems reasonable enough to me. Now we get to the unlimited tier. Now this is the one. All right, so you can see putting on the hat for this one. So we're in the unlimited tier. This one used to be $150, 3% or 3% of fair market value, whichever is higher. So that means if you submit in that tier, you're spending at least $150. But if the book in this case was worth more than $5,000, you would pay more than $150. 5,000 is $150. 10,000 would be $300. 100,000 would be $3,000, for example. And it used to be that there was a max fee of $5,000, meaning if the book was $1 million book, you paid $5,000. You did not pay 3% of that. You did not pay $30,000 to have it graded. And I know this is kind of like a big sticking point for a lot of people, even though most people aren't in this tier anyway. So, but regardless, it's a big sticking point because you go like, why am I paying this much money when you're doing the exact same work that you do in like the modern tier, vintage tier? And I know there's like insurance, the insurance side of it, that kind of stuff. But I think all of us saw, or a lot of us, and if you haven't, I recommend checking it out. Look up something like Superman 1 grading, CGC grading. I think you can still find it on Facebook. There's a video of them grading a Superman 1 live at a show. And they grade it like, I mean, they're just like flipping through it, and I realize like they're handling it, whatever the way they do, but they're not treating that thing any different than a modern book, and that book just cost that person probably $5,000 to have it graded. And it's just like, quick flip through, it feels like they're almost maybe damaging the book a little bit. Like, it just doesn't look great. And so that really, I think, hurt a little bit on the reputation side of things on why they can justify that cost. But it gets even worse when we go to this price change. And this is the one I missed. In 2023, I knew they updated it to 150 minimum, which is still the same, and then 4% of fair market value. not a big deal. You know, it's like now a $4,000 book crosses the limit instead of a $5,000 book. But they removed the max fee limit. That's a big deal. This is why the hat is on right now. And it's because of books like that Amazing Spider-Man #1 9.8 that just sold on Heritage for $1.38 million. A 9.6 sold last year for a little over 500,000. And I talked about that book and the grading on it because I know some people don't think it's a 9.8. Me, I said I think it's a 9.7. I think it's halfway between. I think that it's not a solid 9.8. It's not like a solid 9.6. It's somewhere in the middle. And so it could go either 9.8 or 9.6, depending on, the day that it's submitted. And it's just the way grading is. Sometimes you have books that are in the middle. But when you had a fee limit, the person, I feel like, they're being kept honest, on what the grade they give the book. Like, kind of feel like you've gotten rid of some of the potential conflict of interest that could be there with giving it that 9.8 or 9.6, because 4% of fair market value for 500,000 for that 9.6 is $20,000. Cost you $20,000 to get that book graded. 4% of 1.38 million is about $56,000. That's $36,000 more profit to CGC's bottom line. And this is why I got the tinfoil hat on. I think they do as good of a job as they can, but you just wonder, like, is there some like little bit, like even a little bit, the back of the head or motivation that says like, yeah, just give it the 9.8. We made you make an extra 36 grand and you didn't have to do anything more for it. There's no additional cost for grading. There's no additional cost for casing the book. There's no more time put into it. It's just another 36 grand. And when you compare that to modern books, like if you look at this modern, they're making $25 a book and they're not making 25. They're probably making, I don't know, maybe 10. Like after you take out cost of slabbing the book, the cost of the people that do the grading, do the slabbing, do the shipping, the cost of everything that goes into their building and electricity and all that stuff, who knows? Maybe they're making $10 off that. It may be less. And if you're making an extra 36,000, you have to grade 3,600 modern books to get that $36,000. That is a lot of modern books that you have to pass through your hands to get to that same return on a book. And so it just, it makes you wonder, is there just like a little bit like of a push to be like, yeah, give it the 9.8? Because I mean, I know there was a Daredevil 1 that got resubmitted 9.6 to 9.8 last year, I think. And that was a huge jump in value, like significant. And I think maybe like $700,000 more, something like that. I mean, and when you look at 4% of fair market value, that's another 28 grand to just like, we'll give it the 9.8. So you just wonder, like that's the type of thing where and this doesn't affect very many books. Like this is only books that are worth more than about $125,000 where this comes into play. And that is a very small percentage of comics. So I get that, but I just feel like having that cap, that fee cap, made it so you didn't worry about that. Maybe there's some, invisible hands behind the scenes, kind of like guiding to go for the slightly higher grade. And, but that's why the tinfoil hat's on. I don't know anything, right? Like, but it's just something that makes you wonder, like, is it more likely to shift to the higher grade now in those super high value books? But all right, hat's coming off, tinfoil hat's coming off. Now we're talking about pricing again. And so we had this big drop in price actually for this one, dropped down to $100 minimum, 4% fair market value, still no limit. Now, I think the reason they did this was basically to account for the fact that they removed the express tier. This is what they should have done originally, because if you look at 4% of a $3,000 book, which was that express tier range, that would be $120. And so that's right where express costs used to be. So I think that is why they did this, was they got rid of this tier. It kind of screwed people a little bit with those books that were in that $1,000 to $3,000 range. And so this takes care of that. So I think that's a good change. That is a great change to drop that price. It takes care of the express pricing. Now, next here, we've got, what are the prices that you would experience if you have any of these discounted tiers? And so this is for the premium and associate members, and they get the 10% discount. And you can see that from the 2021 prices, It's cheaper almost across the board, except for vintage. So 24 goes down to 22.50. We've got 35 down up to 36. This is the one that it's a dollar more. We have 80 for high value down to 77.50. Express goes away, and then unlimited goes from 150 down to 90. I mean, so the unlimited tier really it does give you that room for the express one. This is a very beneficial change. Then if we go to the elite members, these are the ones that get 20% off. And you can see here that modern goes from 2160 down to 20. Vintage, again, it's just a little bit more, 50 cents more, 31.50 to 32. High value 72 down to 68. And then unlimited, again, 135 down to 80. And this is me applying the discounts. So these first two columns here, I have the 10% discount applied that the elite members used to have. Now they get 20%. And so you can see almost across the board, except for vintage, it's a better deal. Then the last one here is the dealer pricing. And if you're not familiar with the dealer pricing, what that means is that there are some people who are certified CGC dealers. And for example, my presser, who is the comic book presser, and I'm not just saying like it's the comic book presser, that's his name. His name is the comic book presser. And they get a discount when they submit. And most of the time they will pass that discount on to you. And so local comic shops often do that if they have a dealer account, and my presser, for example, does that. There are other pressers I know that do that as well. And so you can see here, like modern, like they're getting 25% off now. They were at 15%. Now they're getting 25. Modern drops from $20.40 to $18.75. Vintage, just a quarter more. You know, it's just a quarter more expensive than it was 3 years ago. High value drops from 68 down to 63.75. And then the unlimited drops from 127.50 down to 75. I mean, substantial drops in the unlimited tier. Now, the fair market value price is still a little bit higher. You know, it was 2.55%. Now it's 3%, but still, you still have that no limit though. Your cap is still the moon, you know, if you've got an expensive enough book. But the dealer option is really good. If you aren't looking to have your own account, you can really save quite a bit of money. It can, if you have a presser that does it, it can cover a huge percentage of your pressing costs, especially if you're getting into higher dollar books. So just again, something to consider there. But the only downside is that you can't track your own submission. That's why I still use I have an elite account, and that's why I use that, because I like to be able to track my own submission. But if you don't care about that, if you just, you know, the books show up whenever they show up, then you submit through your dealer and or your presser and get that bigger discount. All right. Now let's just real quickly check out those memberships. These are the different memberships that are out there. You've got the elite, that's $299 a year, premiums $149, associates $25, and free is $0. And so really, if you're submitting even like 3 or 4 books a year, get the premium membership. It has this free $150 grading credit. So it basically covers itself as long as you're submitting a few books a year. This is the one that almost anybody should have if you're doing submissions. The elite membership, get that one if you are submitting at least $1,500 in expenses. So meaning you're submitting enough books that it would cost you at CGC $1,500. Then you're saving $300. It makes up for the additional cost, all of that, because you also get the $150 credit. So if you're submitting moderns, it means you'd have to submit 60 books, vintage about 40, high value about 17, just in that range. If you're submitting that many books, get the elite membership. Now, the associate membership and the free membership, they're pretty useless. I don't really see the reason for them. If you're submitting, like I said, if you're going to submit a few books a year anyway, you might as well get the premium membership. But this is where, you know, one of the areas, I'm going to get that tinfoil hat back out. And it's because of the notes that you see under here. Now, this may have just been an oversight. It's very possible. This is just an oversight by whoever made this graphic. Because you can see, free membership says access to online resources, full submission privileges at CGC. And that online resources says census, registry, chat board, and more. When you go to the associate, it adds in this graders notes, the free graders notes for all of these. And so I don't know, the question is, are they planning on charging for graders notes again, effectively? Meaning you would have to have the $25 a year membership to get graders notes. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if this is just somebody missed something on this graphic and they should have had this box there as well, because I did log out of my account and then look up a book that has graders notes, and it showed them to me, at least today still. So I don't know if that's a change they would maybe make in the future or not, but it's just something I would keep an eye on. I mean, they have said that it's supposed to be free graders notes across the board, but this was the one thing that just made me wonder a little bit. Like, is this a change they're making where they're now charging, basically $25 a year for graders notes, which isn't a big deal. I'd pay it anyway. I don't really care. But just something where I noticed that. So one little thing I noticed. Now, the other tinfoil hat topic is, why did they decrease these prices? Because the reality is, I mean, this really is a decrease almost across the board. I mean, from last year's prices, definitely across the board, and from 3 years ago, almost completely across the board, except for the vintage, and it's only by like between a quarter and a dollar, like per book, like almost nothing. And so you wonder, have they been seeing less submissions since the scandal, since the scam with the reholdering stuff? And because we never see CGC drop prices, we don't see anybody drop prices in the current economic climate that we are in. Like, with everything with inflation and all that, like, it's always prices going up. And I have to imagine that CGC's expenses only go up. You're paying people more. Cost of plastic goes up. Cost of rent, like we all know, housing and everything's expensive. Like, all that stuff goes up. And so why are they offering lower prices unless they are seeing a decrease in submissions? So that's one little speculation thing, the tinfoil hat there. Now, the other thing is, I don't think companies do this stuff out of the kindness of their hearts. I mean, like, they're out there to make money. We know CGC is owned by Blackstone. Like, these are companies that are out there to make money, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think they provide a very valuable service, and they should be paid for it. But you wonder, why are they dropping prices? And my other thought is, during that interview that Matt Nelson, when Matt Nelson was on West Coast Avengers channel, they asked, are you coming out with a new case or like new security measure? And basically the answer was, not really. Like, it wasn't clear. They definitely wasn't, yes, we have something planned. This is what we're going to be doing. We are working on this. It was pretty dismissive of what's going on with the case. And so I'm thinking, maybe we aren't getting a new case for a long time, if ever, outside of whatever their planned case change cycle is, which is many, many years. So I'm wondering if maybe we might not see a new case for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, something like that. And maybe this is something where they might have done some type of cost benefit analysis, a comparison between what it would cost to come out with a new case versus what it would cost to the company by decreasing prices but increasing submissions. And because, I mean, they probably have tons of blanks in their warehouse. They don't want, well, they can, but they don't want to just throw all those out. They've got the machinery that's used for slabbing these books. They've got all the training that goes into that. I mean, all of that costs money. I think people think like, oh, they can just come out with a new case. Why haven't they done this already? And it's like, it doesn't work that way. Unless they already had one planned, there is a lot of expense that is into this, and probably a lot of expense that's into, like I said, blanks that they have in their warehouse, because they grade thousands of books a day. They have to have, I don't know if they have millions of blanks on hand, but it's probably hundreds of thousands at least on hand. And they, that's a big expense to just throw those all in the garbage if you come up with a new case. So I wouldn't be shocked if this is a measure to try and get some additional cash flow while they maybe work towards a new case in the longer term. But, and it really makes me think, like, we probably aren't seeing a new case in a while. I could be completely wrong. Maybe they announce it tomorrow. Maybe they announce it next week. But I'm always hesitant to trust something that seems like, oh, this is for the benefit of our consumer, or the benefit of our customer. I just like, I don't know. I don't know if I really buy that. I think it's more likely that they probably are seeing a decrease in submissions, and they aren't planning on changing their case anytime soon. So I think that is likely the reason why we're seeing these price drops. But what we'll see, we'll see in the future, depending on whatever actions they take related to the whole CGC scam thing. And the other thing is, and I've mentioned this in some other videos, Mickey mentioned this in his recent live stream. The collector community, or at least some portion of it, is really pushing back against talking about that scam anymore. There are people making memes and all this kind of stuff, insulting people that are talking about it, making fun of people that are talking about it. And, maybe CGC sees that and they go like, yeah, this is already almost past. Like, we don't really need to do anything. we'll let the collector community or whatever deal with this themselves. They'll make fun of anybody that talks about it anymore, that they're just trying to get clout or whatever. And then we just won't, we won't have to do anything. And that wouldn't really surprise me. Now, just one other comment related to that. And Mickey touched on this a little bit in his channel as well. And I want to reinforce that too. The people that I see trying to say, hey, get over it. You don't need to talk about this scam anymore. It's generally dealers. That's usually who I'm seeing talking about this. It's either someone who is extremely invested in CGC in terms of what they have, or it's dealers. And of course they don't want you to think about that scam. They want you to just buy their books, and don't worry about it. But just something to think about when, who you're getting that information from. It is a big deal. It really is a big deal. And it is something that should be addressed. But this is making me think probably not being addressed anytime soon. But we'll see. We'll see. I didn't think CGC was going to come out with a response as early as they did to the whole scam thing. And they did. So maybe they'll prove me wrong again. But yeah, discounting prices just doesn't sit well, I like it, but makes me think that there's some ulterior motive there. But all right, taking off the hat. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, just hit that like button, subscribe button, notification bell, all that kind of stuff. I got more videos over here. If you'd like to watch some of my other videos, subscription button is right here. If you'd like to subscribe to the channel, I'd really appreciate it. And I'll see you in the next video.